The road out of South Sudan carried thousands of frightened families searching for safety. Moses, Susan, Nyoka, and Uncle Kamis walked for days through forests, muddy roads, and abandoned villages. Hunger and exhaustion followed them everywhere. At night, families slept beneath trees while distant gunfire echoed through the darkness. Susan often asked when they would return home, but even Nyoka no longer knew the answer. After many days of walking, the family finally crossed into Uganda. Endless rows of white tents stretched beneath the hot sun, while exhausted families stood in long food lines. Children cried softly as aid trucks moved through the camp roads. Moses looked around silently, realizing for the first time that refugee camps were not temporary for many people. For some families, the camp had become their entire life. Years passed inside the refugee camp, and childhood disappeared quickly there. Moses spent his days repairing broken radios and helping new families arriving from South Sudan. Susan studied beside him using old school books while Naoko worked tirelessly distributing food and caring for others in the settlement. Even inside the camp, the family carried memories of home quietly within them. And the kids kept asking their Ma'am, when is Papa joining us? We miss him. One stormy night, Uncle Kamis finally revealed the truth the family had carried silently for years. He explained that Moses and Susan's father had stayed behind during the fighting to help families escape through hidden routes near the border. Nyoka had hidden the truth because she wanted her children to survive before carrying the pain of that memory. Their father was gone, never to return, never to be seen again. He was a hero. After many years in the refugee camp, Moses, Susan, Nyoka, and Uncle Kamis finally began the long journey back to South Sudan. The road to Ye felt unfamiliar and heavy with memories. Villages stood damaged and overgrown, while abandoned homes quietly carried the marks of war. As the family reached their old neighborhood, Moses stood silently outside the remains of their house, struggling to recognize the place where their lives had once been. Filled with peace and laughter, even though the walls were broken and the rooms stood empty, the feeling of home still remained deeply alive within them. Returning home was not easy, but slowly the family began rebuilding their lives. Moses repaired broken parts of the house with help from neighbors, while Nyoka planted crops beside their small home. Once again, Susan returned to school, together with other children who had also come back from the refugee camps. Day by day, the sound of laughter slowly returned to the community. Though the pain of the past remained, the people of Ye began choosing hope over fear and rebuilding over despair. As more families returned from the camps, Moses realized many children still carried fear, sadness, and memories of displacement. Together with Nyoka, Susan, Uncle Kamis, and members of the community, they transformed an old abandoned building into a safe center for returning children. The walls were painted with bright colors and filled with drawings, songs, books, and stories. For the first time in many years, children laughed freely again, slowly learning that healing was possible even after great loss. As the sun set over Yi, families gathered outside the children's center beneath glowing lantern lights and evening songs. Moses stood quietly watching children play freely in the same streets that had once been filled with fear and uncertainty. Nyoka looked on with silent gratitude while Susan danced among the other children with joy she had not felt in years. Uncle Kamis smiled proudly, knowing that despite everything the war had taken, the spirit of home had survived. Though their journey had been filled with pain, loss, and separation, the family finally understood that home is more than a place. It is the memories, love, and hope people carry within their hearts,